May 26, 1990. 81-year-old Elizabeth Lyman would awaken in the middle of the night, see an armed man in her home, scream, then be shot dead. The murderer had cut the victim's telephone line, then broke into the home by removing a pane of glass in the French doors. After killing the victim, he would ransack the home and found around $100. He would then sit down and cook himself a hot meal before a suspicious neighbor called the police. The perpetrator would be caught and confess his crime to the police. On this episode of Chasing Killers, we'll be exploring the life and death of Stephen Wayne Anderson. Let's get into it. Anderson was born on January 19, 1953. His story would begin with a set of mentally unstable parents. Stephen's father was an alcoholic, and his mother would neglect her children. She would even tell her children, "I dreaded the days that you boys were born." His mother told the neighbors she liked her dogs more than her children. At only 14 years old, he was out of the home and on his own. Anderson would make his way to New Mexico and would live outdoors in the hills. It wouldn't be long before his life of crime would begin. At 18, he would burglarize a school in Farmington, New Mexico. He was convicted and sentenced to 1 to 5 years in prison, but would receive additional time for multiple aggravated burglary convictions. This would add over a decade to his sentence. Anderson would serve his time out of state at Utah State Prison. While in prison, he was no model inmate. He would kill another offender and assault prison staff. With his behavior in prison and past criminal record, in most circumstances, Anderson would have never seen the outside of prison, but that would change. November 24th, 1979. Anderson would escape from Utah State Prison. It was during this time that Anderson would work for drug traffickers as a hitman, taking out rivals for cash without thinking twice. He was suspected in more than 6 contract killings, one of which he likely could have been convicted of. This would lead us to the fateful night in Bloomington, California, 6 months after his escape. For supposedly being a professional hitman, he sure didn't act like it on the night of this crime. After shooting Elizabeth Lyman dead and ransacking her house, he would stick around and make a meal using ingredients from the victim's fridge. The police would arrive after receiving a call from the neighbor and take Anderson into custody without incident. Anderson would later say that he should have tried to shoot his way out of the house. When interrogated by the police following his arrest, he would tell them, "I was born and trained to be a killer. I always wanted to be a killer." The murder trial would begin in April 1981. Anderson wouldn't have much of a defense, considering he was caught in the home of the victim with a murder weapon in his waistband. Anderson would be found guilty. The jury would move on to the sentencing phase. After deliberating, they would announce his sentence: death. There wasn't much debate given this offense along with his past criminal history. Anderson would begin his time on death row at the infamous San Quentin State Prison. Before we move on to his time in prison, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any new content. While in prison, he would pursue poetry and writing. He would become well known for his poems and won several awards. The IQ of Anderson had been tested at 136. Some say he was a genius. Anderson would receive a retrial in 1986, but that wouldn't change the outcome of anything. Governor Gray Davis would deny Anderson clemency. All of his appeals were now exhausted. January 29th, 2002. This would be his last day on planet Earth. Anderson would receive no visits from any friends or family during the allotted 3 days prior to his execution. He also declined any spiritual advisors. For his last meal, he would eat 2 grilled cheese sandwiches, cottage cheese, corn, peach pie, chocolate chip ice cream, and radishes. Anderson was allowed, per California law, to select his method of execution, gas or lethal injection. He would choose the needle. Outside the prison, hundreds of protesters held a vigil to try to stop the execution from happening. Anderson would walk into the death chamber at San Quentin State Prison, and the execution would commence at 12:18 a.m. He would be given an opportunity by Warden Janine Woodford to give any last words. He would decline, and at 12:30 a.m., he was pronounced deceased. Anderson paid his debt owed to society, his life. Governor Davis commented regarding Anderson's sentence, "He is an extremely intelligent man. but his intelligence, ironically, makes the brutality and indifference of his crimes all the more reprehensible. This was a Death Row Profile by Chasing Killers. As always, see you next time.